answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
A very good evening. This is Patrick Christys Tonight.
I'm angry that we struggle with the housing crisis and the near impossible situation of having soaring monthly rents.
Loudmouth radical Labour MP Apsana Begum is still living on the taxpayer take in a council house despite earning nearly 90k a year. Welcome to Starmer's Welfare Britain. Plus, does this offend you? Well, it offends the Green Party, apparently, who seemingly want to ban our union flag.
It's needlessly divisive to introduce flags to taxis.
Well, thankfully, the Brits I spoke to today have some common sense.
Every country has their own flag and is not at all racist. They should be proud of it.
Tonight I am asking, should we be prouder of our union flag? Also on the way, the Rwanda rebels were hauled in to see the chief whip today. Andrea Jenkins will exclusively reveal right here on this show what actually went on behind closed doors. And we sent someone undercover to exclusively reveal how kids are being indoctrinated with stuff like this in an arts museum for children. On my panel tonight, it is columnist Carol Malone. We've got former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy and journalist Mike Buckley. Are you ready, Britain? Here we go. Weather warnings everywhere, and another storm prepares to batter Britain, but not everyone is taking it seriously. Top bombing, my man, top bombing. I'll see you after the news.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening to you. Well, Patrick's right. New weather warnings have been issued with a new storm, Storm Jocelyn, heading for the UK just as the country recovers from Storm Isha. 2 people died and tens of thousands of people remain without power after the UK was battered with high winds last night. Gusts of more than 100 miles an hour and heavy rain caused major travel disruption with flooding and fallen trees, forcing planes to be diverted and trains to be cancelled. ScotRail has announced today it's again suspending services from 7 o'clock tomorrow right through to Wednesday morning as the new weather front approaches. There'll be no trains on Wednesday as the lines are having to be checked for damage. Downing Street has denied that the government's pursuing an anti-BBC agenda after announcing a raft of reforms as part of a review into the corporation. Under new plans, Ofcom could gain more powers over BBC News website articles if it doesn't meet relevant standards. Government recommendations imply Ofcom should be given increased oversight over the BBC's online services, including its YouTube channel. The Prime Minister said today that the BBC isn't immune to scrutiny. British farmers have been calling on MPs to support tougher regulations to protect them from what they're calling unfair treatment by the so-called Big Six supermarkets. A dozen scarecrows were placed outside Parliament as MPs debated reforms to the grocery supply chain. It's after 110,000 people signed a petition urging the government to overhaul the grocery supplies code of practice. Well, Riverford Organic, the company which started the petition, said the scarecrows represented farmers they claim could go out of business in the next 12 months because of the Big Six supermarkets' buying practices. Labour's accused the government of turning a blind eye to corruption after new data showed water bosses have been pocketing millions of pounds in performance bonuses despite being in charge while there have been illegal sewage spills. New figures showed water chiefs have received more than £10 million in bonuses and nearly £15 million in incentives since the last general election in 2019. Labour says if it gets to power, it'll give the regulator the power to ban senior executives' bonuses if their companies are illegally polluting waterways. Queen Camilla toured today a domestic violence refuge in Wiltshire to celebrate the service's 50th anniversary. Her Majesty met with staff, volunteers and families at the Swindon Domestic Abuse Support Service. Asked about the King, Queen Camilla said he's fine as he prepares to undergo treatment for an enlarged prostate this week. King Charles saying earlier on he wants to be more open about his condition to encourage other men to get themselves checked out. That's the news on GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker. This is Britain's news channel.
Loudmouth hard-left Labour MP Epsana Begum is still living in a taxpayer-funded council house despite earning mega money. Is this a window, do you think, into the socialist entitled benefits Britain that awaits us under Labour? It certainly raises serious questions about how people can game the system and live a life on the taxpayer take, which of course is not what Miss Begum is doing here at all. Radical pro-Palestine Begum attacked the Tories last week for having no solutions to the housing crisis. In fact, it's been a theme of her time as an MP since she was elected in 2019.
In London, we have a very, very severe housing crisis. We know that 800 people alone died rough sleeping last year. We know that homelessness has gone up. We know that there isn't enough social housing being built. I'm angry that we struggle with the housing crisis and the near impossible situation of having soaring monthly rents, which all too often means people, particularly those on low incomes, are faced with an increased risk of homelessness. And we must be very clear that those with the broadest shoulders and with the deepest pockets must pay their fair share.
Oh, really? Well, now it's turned out that despite being on just under £90,000 a year, and there are question marks over whether or not she's actually on more than that, she's living in a flat that supposedly we're all paying for. In a sense, she's got her hand out twice, hasn't she? We pay her wages and then we pay for our house. I've got a solution. Go and rent your own home. Stand on your own 2 feet. Now, this woman was endorsed by radical left-wing group Momentum, nominated on an all-woman shortlist. She's escaped punishment for standing alongside the Palestine Solidarity campaign that responded to the Hamas attack by organising a demonstration outside the Israeli embassy. Let's take a look at some of the numbers here, shall we? Because they are pretty damning. The average salary where Begum lives is just over £30,000 a year. The average salary in the UK is just shy of £35,000. That's nearly a third of her £86,500 salary as an MP. In her area, there are around 20,000 people on the housing waiting list, and she is living in a council flat despite being an MP. She said years ago that she thought she didn't really need the council flat. Well, she's part of the problem, though, then, isn't she? Many people will find it absolutely insane that somebody earning roughly 90k a year can still claim benefits. But here we are in modern Britain, and people are happy to do it. Now, in August 2023, 22.6 million people were claiming some form of benefits in England, Scotland and Wales. In London, 47.6% of social housing occupants are reportedly immigrants. It is expected that £14.3 billion will be spent on housing benefits this year. That includes people like Ms Begum, apparently. Analysis of Office for National Statistics data from 2020 to 2021 showed a record 54.2% of people, that was 36 million at the time, now live in households which received more in benefits than they contributed in taxes. In places like Lambeth in London, where the average rent is £2,745 a month, people who've just arrived to this country can get it subsidised at around £487 a month. And today it's emerged that migrants are being given taxpayer-subsidised social housing just off the Portobello Road in London. They can pay £151 a week for a 3-bedroom property, apparently. Normally that will be 860 quid a week, and they are allowed to sublet their spare rooms, to rent them out, and to keep the profits. This is an absolute mickey take. People are bang at it in this country when it comes to claiming benefits. We have the highest tax burden since World War II, and your taxes are paying for people like Upsana Begum. Are you happy about that? Now, we approached Upsana Begum for comment, and she failed to get back to us, but let's get the thoughts of my panellists. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, I've got commentator and journalist Mike Buckley, and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda DeLucy. Thank you, all of you. Carol, you know, is this typical Labour, always got a hand out or not?
Typically, you know, one set of principles for Labour, another set for the rest of us. This woman is a towering hypocrite. She talks about the Tories not tackling the housing crisis, and she's part of it, filling her boots, courtesy of the state, on 90 grand, as you say, nearly 90 grand, because she has her MP salary, plus she has the £4,300, I think it is, the London, what they call London waiting. You know, this is a case, you know, if there's 23,000 people in your area, desperate people on the housing list, and she knows that, she absolutely knows that, it's a matter of morals, a matter of principle, a matter of duty to give up that flat. She admitted 2 years ago she doesn't really need it. She said very glibly, I don't really need this now. So why is she still in it? Well, probably because it's, as you say, it's been paid for by the state. It's a nice riverside property. She maybe couldn't afford to pay for that by herself. But it's astonishing that she has got away with this. If this was a Tory MP living in a council flat, place, whatever it is, there would be hell to pay. Hell. And there's also questions raised over how she got this flat in the first place, that she was a former housing advisor in the borough, and it was said at the time that she had an understanding of how the system worked. So that ought to be looked into as well.
Okay.
But it's shocking.
All right, I'll come back to you. Mike, you know, this is a pretty bad look, is it not? I mean, is this not a window into benefits Britain that awaits us if we have a Starmer government?
I mean, she's exactly right in saying that the government have no solution to the housing crisis. We haven't built enough housing for the last 13 years. Lots of people can't get on the housing ladder, and that's not just in London, it's across Britain. There's nowhere near enough social housing, as evidenced by the fact that in Tower Hamlets there's 20,000 people on the waiting list.
She's clogging it
and
up.
that, again, is in every other part of Britain as well. It is odd, I admit, that an MP is living in social housing, but it's important to say that we are not paying for it. She is paying rent on that property, and that rent will go to the social housing provider, whether that's the council or whether that's the...
It's a subsidised rent, Mike.
It is a subsidised rent, but also she's not receiving benefits either. So, and you said both of those things in your introduction. So she's paying for it out of her salary. We are not paying her...
But that is a benefit.
No, it isn't.
That is a benefit.
She has a job.
Subsidised is a benefit.
She has a job, and she gets paid for that job.
90 grand.
Out of her payment, she is paying rent on that property as everybody else in social housing
She has said she doesn't need it. She said that she shouldn't really.
She did say that. I mean, one thing that you guys
yet she
haven't
stands
mentioned
in the
this
Commons.
evening, and you may not know this, I fully understand, she is currently an MP, but she's been what's called deselected by her local Labour Party. So she's got to go through a re-selection process. I can't quite remember the reasons for that. So she may be out of a job in 6 months' time when we get to the general election. So she's probably sitting there right now thinking, I'm going to face re-selection. I might need to live in this house.
Why has she been deselected?
I can't actually remember the reasons why.
Belinda, your views on this? I mean, I think most people will find it sticky in the craw somewhat that somebody on just shy, reportedly, of £90,000 a year could have any kind of leg up whatsoever.
I'd love to be on 90 grand a year and have subsidised rent. I mean, so would everyone. I think it is a moral issue, as Carol said. I also think, I mean, God forbid socialists ever practice what they preach, but to be standing there as if you're for the working class, the working people, the poor, and what I see as abusing the taxpayer, because it is abusing the taxpayer. It's almost like, for me, in my opinion, stealing money. I saw it going on a lot in the EU Parliament as well, as if it was just a money tree and not actually the wages of, you know, nurses and teachers and bin men that are actually going to subsidise this highly paid MP in a council house. I think it's massive. She's like the female version of Gary Lineker. It's massively hypocritical.
Am I wrong in thinking that there's a limit to how much you can earn?
Right, well, I looked
council housing.
No, I looked into this.
The limit is 90 grand.
In this particular borough, it is
Which
90
is shocking
grand.
in itself.
Shocking, that needs to be changed.
That's shocking in itself.
I actually find
she's
that
busting
staggering
that.
that it
Me
should
too.
be. I don't know if that's per flat or per person. If it's per flat, it should be half that. If it's per person, it should be about a third of that.
Because that's my wider point, right,
Yeah,
really, which
completely.
is... And it points at a kind of benefits Britain thing, which is that clearly, it is incredibly easy to find yourself on some form of benefits. I mean, something like 30 million people in the UK were on some form of benefits.
50-odd% are on some kind of...
But we are under a Tory government. I mean, you know, there has to be some responsibility taken by those in power that this is allowed to happen, because people will use every loophole, every little sneaky way they can to get around the system and abuse the taxpayer if they can. They've been green-lighted. That's the reason why it benefits Britain at the moment.
You guys have a very low view of human nature and of British people.
Well, I do, at the moment.
I genuinely find that quite sad.
I think the taxpayer's being abused.
I have a much higher opinion of the British people. I don't think people are scrounged. I think people generally want to work hard and get on in life.
Well, you know, there are 2.5 million people currently not working.
The value of benefits in this country has absolutely fallen off a cliff in the last 13 years.
Are you kidding? You are joking.
I mean, there was a big piece about it that on Sunday. Gordon Brown was talking about it, and the fact that poor people on benefits now, they're paying a staggering amount of their income on basic needs like energy and fuel, partly because energy and fuel prices have gone up.
50-odd% of people in this country are on some
Most of those will be top-ups.
Not most of those.
That is
you
because
can't just generally say most
that is
of them
another
are
result of
top-ups.
government failure. The real value of wages in this country hasn't gone up since 2006, which is a staggering indictment on the failure of this government to manage the economy properly, which does, of course, mean that people then need to apply for benefit top-ups.
That does not mean we have a higher burden than, I think, since World War II anyway.
Of tax.
Of people,
Yes.
yeah, but that tax is paid by people who do go out and earn
But the vast majority of people on benefits are also working because people go out and work, but when they work, but they get a low wage. Well, I can say it because it's true.
It's not
they get paid a low wage, and then they need to go on benefits.
Tell us the percentage that you think the vast majority on will check it. What is the percentage you think are on working and on benefits? What is that percentage?
I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but I'm very happy to look into it in the break.
Yeah, so am I, yeah.
All right, well, I mean, there are some stats. So 22.6 million people were claiming some form of benefits in England, Scotland and Wales as of August 2023. When it comes to universal credit, £59.8 billion a year as of October, apparently. It's expected that £14.3 billion will be spent on housing benefits, etc., etc., etc. I mean, this is a heck of a lot of money that is being paid by the more well-off in society. And it does appear to me, Belinda, that the argument to that is, oh, we'll make them pay more. I just don't know whether or not that's actually quite ungrateful.
No, there is a real problem in this country. 18% of those able to work in the working age group and that don't have a disability, 18% of the population of Manchester are on benefits. This is not right. It is not healthy. There's so much dignity to work as well. I think throwing people on the scrap heap of never-ending benefits rather than saying, no, you've got to get a job. And you talk about wages. Well, if Labour gets in, I think inflation's going to go through the roof again because they're going to submit to all the unions. Final
quick word to you, Mike, on this. I mean, the overarching concern here is that if Labour come in, it will be a green light for anyone who fancies claiming benefits.
Well, of course it won't. I mean, far from it. I mean, what Labour will do is invest in the economy so that more jobs are created. I mean, there was something the other day, say, I can't remember what the stat was, but again, I'll look at it in the break.
That's right, yeah.
But there would have been millions more jobs had the government done a better job managing the economy and done a better job with the Brexit outcome.
All right, OK. Look, all of you, thank you very much. Fiery start. We'd love to see it. Still to come there. I'll be joined live by leading Tory rebel Andrea Jenkins. Will the Dame finally behave? I have my doubts. She's going to be revealing what was actually said in the Whip's office. How is our government now treating those Rwanda rebels? But first, as a Green councillor says this about the Union flag.
It's needlessly divisive to introduce flags to taxis.
Do we need to have more pride in our country's flag? Falklands hero Simon Weston defends our beloved Union flag against anti-racism activist Ken Hines. Don't go anywhere. This is Patrick Christys Tonight, and we are only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, only on GB News. Now, coming up, Dame Andrea Jenkins is live from Westminster to spill the beans on the Rwanda rebels' latest meeting earlier today. But first, it's time now for our head-to-head. This got loads of you going online today. A Shropshire taxi driver with decades of military service has been left baffled after a local Green Party councillor said displaying a union flag in taxis was needlessly divisive. Watch and listen.
They sent me an email stating that I was in breach of advertising standards and I had to remove the Cross of St George and the Union Jack from my vehicle.
It's needlessly divisive to introduce flags to taxis, so I find it unfair, discriminatory, and I'm surprised it would even be legal to do this.
Ridiculous. So, to restore my faith in the great British public, I headed out to East London earlier today to see what people there thought of our union flag.
It shows unity, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I think you need to proud where you live, innit?
I was born and raised the way, respecting the flag, brought up protecting the flag. If they do try and ban it, it will cause massive drama.
Every country has their own flag and it's not at all racist. They should be proud of it. And you can see Palestinian flags, so why not British flags?
Would you ever vote for a party that said that this was divisive, that they thought that this flag was divisive?
No, I wouldn't, because they've no sense of worth, really, have they?
Literally couldn't find anyone who thought it was a bad thing. So tonight I am asking, should we be more proud of our country's flag? Let me know your thoughts. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. You can tweet me at GBNews. Go and take part in our poll right now. I'll bring you those results in a few short moments. But first, going head-to-head on this are anti-racism activist Ken Hines and the Falklands veteran Simon Weston. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Simon, I will start with you. Should we be more proud of our flag, do you think? And what do you make of these calls to ban it because it's divisive?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think we should be ashamed of our flag. It's part of our national identity. It's our symbol. What went on many, many years ago is it's not my responsibility, and it's not today's society's responsibility. If people are offended by it, they have a problem. It's their problem. It shouldn't be our problem. Please, it shouldn't be banned. People are entitled to display anything they want, as long as there's nothing in there which is directly attacking anybody of any other ethnicity. People should be allowed to live as free and as happy a life as they possibly can. I have absolutely no problem with that. I am a complete anti-racist. I do not like racism at all, but I do not see that our flags in this country are any more divisive than flags from other countries. And we allow lots of people to do it. We even allowed all those Palestinian supporters to do that at the cenotaph, which caused great outrage amongst veterans. But it still went ahead. I don't see why we should ban anybody's identity or visions of any symbolism that identifies the country they are from. And especially if you've served in the armed forces, you are entitled to show that your support is for your country. You don't ban football supporters, so why should you ban a taxi driver that has served, put his life on the line for his country? He should be entitled to do this.
Ken, do you find the Union flag, the Union Jack, divisive?
In some situation, but as Simon quite clearly stated, and I agree with everything that he says in regards that there's situation when people use it for ulterior motive to cause fear, alarm and distress. We saw that with the far right when they came up to saying protecting the Churchill statues and things of that nature. But largely on the large whole, even I wave the St. George's flag on a sporting occasion. And I don't see anything wrong in raising the Union Jack or the St. George's flag so long as the intention is correct. And as he says, Mr. Brockhurst, he served for the country and he should have every right to be proud of what he's done and the way that he wants to display it.
All right, Simon, what do you make of this kind of, I would argue it as like student social media-based politics, where you get these pillocks from the Green Party or whatever, saying, oh, it's divisive, and I can't believe it. It will be legal in this country to do... Do those people need to get out more? I was on the streets of Stratford earlier on, incredibly diverse place, speaking to a massive range of people right across different age demographics. I couldn't find a single sausage who said to me that they thought that this guy from the Green Party was right.
The guy from the Green Party obviously has absolutely no attention from anybody, and this is his way of finding attention. Both Ken and myself, we both agree that nobody should use any symbol of national identity to offend others deliberately, because that's just inflaming a situation. There's so much sensitivity around so many things today, and people do get offended by so much so quickly without any rhyme or reason. But this is a situation where nobody has done a single thing to anybody. All it is, it says England, it's the cross of St. George. Look, the Welsh aren't even represented on the Union flag. We aren't even represented. Northern Ireland is, Scotland, England, but not Wales. But we don't go around banning flags. We don't go around banning anybody sort of celebrating their identity. I think, you know, we see Jamaican people who go to the cricket, we see Pakistani people, Indian people, all dressed up in their national garb. And why not? I think it's a wonderful spectacle. I think to see people celebrate their cultural heritage is right. But we as Brits should not be denied from doing exactly the same thing in our own country.
Ken, does anyone, do you think, have a right to be offended in this country about our national flag? I mean, you know, you were alluding to, I think, a historic time, thankfully historic time, where, you know, maybe it was monopolised by people who were racist, do you think?
Look, my thing is, I understand that the Union Jack has got, you know, certain symbols around colonialism and the effects that has had. But the fact of the matter is, we have to move on from those dark days, because Britain is no longer a superpower. And the fact of the matter is, the people of today should not be held accountable for the people who have done things over historical time. So my thing is that with Simon, I feel his emotion, I feel his passion, and I think he's absolutely 100% right to have that and express it as he feels fit.
All right, look, both of you, can I just say thank you very, very much for coming on. Really great to get both of your views there. That is anti-racism activist Ken Hines and Falklands veteran Simon Weston. Look, we contacted Shropshire Council earlier today. They told us Shropshire Council's Strategic Licensing Committee met on the 11th of January to discuss a change to its Hackney carriage and private hire licensing policy 2023 to 2027. Following concerns raised about the council's position on the display of national flags, can I just interject here at this point and just say, I think it will come as a surprise to many people to learn that on the QT, it was initially passed that there should be no representation. It should not be allowed to have any representation of a Union flag in a black cap. I don't remember there being a massive hoo-ha about that at the time. I think it goes a long way to just showing what can actually be swept through during the back door if people aren't actually on top of it. But anyway, they continued at a meeting. It was agreed to permit the display of the Union flag on taxis and private hire vehicles, an amendment that was put forward by local Market Drayton Councillor. Look, who do you agree with here? Should we have more pride in this country's flag? Jackie on X says, I do not have pride in what our flag has been made to represent. I'm English to the core, but I'm also European to the core. Our flag, sadly, is being misused to represent far-right extremists who want nothing to do with... Look, Jackie, can I also just push back a bit on that and just say, you know, there are extremists in the EU movement. There are extremists when it comes to the LGBTQ plus agenda as well. They all use those flags. The Palestine flag, at the moment, that you're seeing literally everywhere you go, do you not think that is being used by extremists? I'm not saying that people of the far right haven't at times obviously used our national flag, but I'm saying, do you not think it's just a thing with flags in general? Adam on X says, let's ask some World War II, Falklands, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans if they find it divisive. No, quite. Simone on X says, I genuinely can't understand the obsession with flags. Our verdict is now in. 71% of you think that we should have more pride in our country's flag. 29% of you say that we shouldn't. Now, coming up, as it's revealed that the student taking her high school to the High Court was recently suspended for threatening to stab a classmate The prayer ban fallout consuming Britain has taken yet another controversial turn. Fleet Street kingpin Kelvin Mackenzie joins me in the studio to react to these latest developments. And mark my words, this is going to be a case that defines Britain going forward. And I will also be telling you about some very interesting developments of our own that I know you're going to love, and I'll be revealing them to you a little bit later on. But first, Dame Andrea Jenkins beams in live from Westminster to give us an exclusive update after the Rwanda rebels were called into the Chief Whip's office, OK? They were called in today, one by one. Was it a rap on the knuckles, or was it a peace offer? Now, she was on Sky News earlier on, and she gave them the bum's rust, so she could tell you exactly what is happening. So this is the only place to be. Patrick Christys tonight on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight. We're only on GB News. Coming up, Kelvin Mackenzie weighs in on the reports that this schoolgirl suing Catherine Birbal Singh in a Muslim prayer row was previously suspended for threatening to stab a fellow pupil. Do not miss that. But first, I'm joined by former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins. Dame Andrea, thank you very, very much. You were one of only 11 Tory rebels who actually voted against Rishi Sunak's Rwanda bill last week. And I understand that you were called into the Whip's office for a meeting just hours ago. Can you reveal to us What went on, please?
I mean, let's just say it's standard practice, Patrick. I mean, I was in the whip's office. You know, if you vote against the government, it's normal practice to be called into the office. I mean, I think if anything, I see the media today have been saying that even the Prime Minister himself called people in, but that wasn't the case. So we each had a meeting with the chief, and yeah, it was just a usual bog standard thing, really. You know, why did you vote against the government? I understand that some colleagues are getting frustrated and thinks that the 11 of you should be losing the whip. He didn't agree with it himself, but we know, I guess it's the One Nation lot who's saying that. And yeah, all about party unity. We need to pull together and take the fight against Starmer, which we do need to take the fight against Starmer. I was quite myself very honest and said about what my views are about party leadership and everything. But no, I mean, and we left the meeting at the end. I shook the chief's hand, and you know, all's fair in love and war, and this is politics, and he was just doing his job, in all honesty.
So they asked you why you voted against the government, and what did you say?
Oh, what did I say? Well, I think the Rwanda bill, just everything I've said publicly to you on the show, actually, Patrick, you know, there's no back doors about me, that it's about actually standing up for the British public. What's the point of having a policy if it's not going to, we're not going to deliver on it? It gets people's hopes up. So it was more that kind of angle. If anything, I'm more annoyed with the colleagues who wanted the whip removing from 11 of us rather than the chief today, if I'm honest, Patrick.
Well, that's a key point. So clearly, the One Nation group of Tory MPs who have actually had it all their own way, pretty much, when it comes to the Rwanda bill. In fact, they have had it all their own way. Wanted the Rwanda rebels to lose their whip. So that would be what? Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick, yourself, a handful of others.
I don't know, it's the One Nation. This is me guessing it's the One Nation, because to me, who else could it be? But I mean, it's interesting because the Lords tonight defeated for the same number of votes virtually of what they won it by in the Commons. And I think, if anything, Patrick, Labour's really trying to stop it in the Lords, and it'd be interesting how things, when it bounces back in the next few weeks to our House, you know, what happens also with rebels, because they are putting motions in today to weaken it even more. We're not going to vote for stuff to weaken it. I don't like the policy, but we don't want it weakened even more, do we? And give you know, EU judges, etc., more ways to make sure flights don't get off the ground. So I think it's a funny tipping point. But if anything, though, Patrick, you know, I'm always outspoken, as you know. But I think that clearly there's unhappiness in the party. But I want to start seeing other people put their head above the parapet, Patrick. It can't always be me. And you know, I fight, but come on, we've got to see the others now.
I had a lot of messages from Conservative MPs the morning after the night before, as it were, of the Rwanda bill. And actually, a lot of them were saying the same thing that they said the first time, that they marched up the hill and marched back down again, which is head in hands moment. We shouldn't have done this. We've shown much more loyalty to Rishi Sunak than he's ever shown to us. I mean, do you think that's true? Rishi Sunak there, or in the Whip's office anyway today, saying, oh, come on, you know, we need to unite, we need to show party loyalty. Well, it doesn't appear to me to have been a lot of loyalty to the people like yourself, who have been these Rwanda Spartans.
And I did also point out that where was the loyalty to Boris? You know, I'm sure these same people who wanted myself and my colleagues to lose the whip, were they saying that about themselves? Clearly not, when they wanted Boris out, when they wanted Liz Truss out. So one thing I can't stand is hypocrisy, I'm afraid. But again, we see it on the Labour benches as well. Look how Starmer backed Corbyn. You know, we see complete hypocrisy there. And I mean, about people marching up, I thought that was, I mean, people make their own decisions, don't they? And, you know, like Pretty, I can understand Pretty because she got an amendment that she wanted in it, one that she had from when she was Home Secretary. But to me, when people resign, I've resigned previously. What's the point of resigning if you're not going to go the whole way? You end up peeing everybody off, your constituents, yourself even. So I'm sure that those who decided not to back it and had their head in the hands, as you mentioned, I'm sure they had a pretty few difficult days.
Yeah, and just that news that did break about an hour or so ago as well, which is the House of Lords has defied Rishi Sunak to vote against the ratification of the UK's new treaty in Rwanda. It could prove damaging development for the safety of Rwanda bill. Peers voted 214 to 171 to not ratify the agreement. I mean, everyone could have seen this coming, so we're going to be playing ping-pong with the Lords, aren't we, going forward? But
they'll want to drag it on, Patrick, won't they? They want to drag it on so we don't get it through the House of Commons as well. It's in their interest, the Lords,
Yeah, exactly. And just want to move it on to something about Keir Starmer, actually, because he's come out in defence of the National Trust's new woke agenda today, all right? I think we could just take a little look at this, can't we?
Instead of working with the National Trust, so more people can learn about and celebrate the culture and our history, they've managed to demean their work. And it comes to something when the Tories are at war with the National Trust. That's what happens when politics of self-preservation prevail over commitment to service.
Yeah, OK. I mean, look, I actually think this is a very worrying sign of things to come under Labour, OK? If he doesn't think that there's anything wrong with a great traditional British institution like the National Trust going overtly woke, kind of denouncing its own history, arguably, I would say anyway, you know, pushing its traditional membership base to one side, looking at the desecration of a lot of British history there. If he doesn't think there's anything wrong with that, then what does that say about a future Labour government? Oh, I think we've lost Andrea. That's hard to say. Oh, there we go. Andrea, sorry. What do you think that says about the potential future Labour government? If he doesn't think there's anything wrong about the way that the National Trust has been alienating members, has been, you know, pushing back against British history, has been going woke, I mean, that's the problem, isn't it?
I mean, Starmer, Wokarama, I say it. I mean, I'm not surprised by his endorsement of the National Trust, because look at his history. I mean, he struggled to define a woman, look at the stuff with the trans community, look how he kneeled with the BLM movement. It's indicative that is controlled by this woke agenda, actually, Patrick. And I think he is a danger to common sense. And he's so out of touch with the grassroots members, and also in red wall seats like mine, they can't abide this wokeness. So actually, it might be setting his stall differently, but I think is actually not doing himself any favours.
Yeah, I mean, the National Trust is absolutely embroiled in kind of a non-stop woke agenda. It does appear to highlight issues with the past and all of this stuff, and a lot of people are saying, why on earth are you actually doing this? But Dame Andrea, look, thank you very, very much. That is former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins. Now, coming up, with the Rochdale grooming gang leader still in the country 9 years after he was meant to be deported, should the Home Office be doing more to kick the convicted pervert and others like him out of this country? Hear more from me on that at 10 p.m. and the true cost, by the way, of what it's costing you to keep people like that in the country. But next, as the student taking her school to the High Court for banning Muslim prayers after a campaign of criminal damage, intimidation, harassment, is found to have, shock horror, threatened to stab a fellow student, the religious row gripping Britain has taken another unexpected twist. No nonsense, Kelvin Mackenzie joins me live next to weigh in, plus James Cleverly's shaky record on stopping those small boats. It's Patrick Christys tonight. It's all go.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight. We're only on GB News. More shocking revelations from the Rochdale grooming scandal are coming up at 10. But first, I'm joined live in the studio by Fleet Street legend Kelvin Mackenzie. And it has transpired that a Muslim girl taking her school to the High Court over a prayer ban was recently suspended for threatening to stab a fellow student. The pupil and her mother are claiming that the Michaela Community School's ban on prayers is discriminatory and breaches her right to freedom of religion, while head teacher Catherine Burblesing said, "We believe it is wrong to separate children according to religion or race. Multiculturalism can only succeed when we understand that every group must make sacrifices for the sake of the whole." It's been revealed in court that the pupil launching the legal challenge told a classmate she planned to harm the school and threatened to stab her if she told anyone, which she was suspended for in last April. I'll be bringing you, and this is something I'm very pleased to be able to reveal to you now live on air, I'll be bringing you a bombshell interview with head teacher Catherine Burblesing herself on this show tomorrow night. And in the day, I feel honoured to be invited to the school, where I'll be going and getting a look around firsthand, and we'll be doing a piece on that for you tomorrow night, so right here on this show. But Kelvin joins me in the studio now. This High Court case could cost the taxpayer up to £1 million, and actually I think the costs to our country could be much greater if it's successful. Your views?
Right, so it's a fantastic school. So this is Skint. Brent is one of the poorest areas of the country. There are 700 pupils there, 350 of them are Muslims. So how does the school do? Fantastic. Over 80% of the children who go into the sixth form pupils go on to Russell Group, Imperial, fantastic universities. Those who just take the English and the maths, the 5 there, right? They about 92% pass it, right? These are unbelievable numbers of people from very poor backgrounds.
Absolutely.
OK, she is doing a fantastic job. Suddenly, she runs into this issue. It's not only going to be an issue for this school, because, right, I bet, OK, and I'd like everybody to record this, I bet that they lose, OK? However,
who loses?
The Muslim activist girl loses, right? But if it were to go the other way, honestly, it would be an incredible effect on the schools, and it would cause not only trouble between teachers and pupils. What about between pupils and pupils, right? Well, I mean, for instance, what would happen at that school? There are Hindus, there are Sikhs, there are Christians, there are all kinds of people. So my bet is that they do lose. There is no guarantee, there is no underwritten law which says that a school has to have any kind of religion in its schooling. Doesn't have to have morning prayers, afternoon prayers, anything. Morning assembly, nothing, right? Why should the Muslim community be different? They say we are disadvantaged because we're the only ones that do multiple prayers. What, they can pray in the morning, they can pray in the evening, they're just asked not to pray during school time.
It sets another fundamental precedent, potentially, which I think will be used in wider society, which is that it completely separates the category of prayer from other religions to the Islamic faith. It's trying to attempt to set the precedent that the Muslim prayer cannot be done within the privacy of one's own mind, and therefore it needs a public display. And if that is the case, then that can be rolled out in every single workplace. It could be rolled out right across the country. And I think it would pave the way for Britain potentially to become a quote-unquote Muslim country.
Which is in fact, actually what lies beneath all this. Because remember, this is not only causing, the Muslim community are not only just causing a problem in Brent, they're causing a problem in Leighton at the Berkeley Primary.
Hardline elements of it,
yes, and yes, hardline. Well, are they hardline? They might be. They might be. Or they might be the underpinning of the entire Islamic faith. I don't know. I don't know. This is one of the problems. I don't know Islamic activists, and perhaps your show should have some on.
I think one of the problems with this and other situations like it is that when you get more radical elements, and this is something that Catherine Burbleston has alluded to, they then try and pressure other more moderate actors, whether it's in the school or not. So why aren't you wearing a headscarf? Or why aren't you attending prayers? Where are your prayer mats? Why aren't you doing this, and this? And that's a real problem, because we've seen it time and time again with other people who have now been reformed members of extremist groups who have said those are the exact tactics that they use.
Well, why doesn't your show invite on two activists against other people and try and have the debate at a fairly balanced level?
Because that's your problem. We have on numerous different occasions and actually done so, especially when the Israel-Palestine thing was really, really kicking off. And I'm certainly not against doing it in future, absolutely not. But it can be remarkably tricky for a variety of different reasons, and certainly the attitude that is displayed there, and it doesn't often make for a serviceable
But this is a fantastic school, and the idea that it's incredible. By the way, you couldn't get these marks in any other school in the country. I mean, she is a fantastic person. And the idea that the reason it's become even more famous than it actually was famous, is simply because of a religious divide, and it is very upsetting.
And do you think that if we do end up in a situation where this is successful at the High Court, are you concerned about what that might mean for Britain going forward?
Do you know what I would do? Right, after all, we've seen it with Rwanda, we've seen the Prime Minister act or try to act, right? He'll have to go, he will have to push through the Commons a law banning this, right? No ifs and buts about it. We cannot have one religious group being entitled to do something which is going to disrupt schooling for the majority.
All right, look, Kelvin, thank you very much for coming on and talking about this. And just want to reiterate as well to everybody watching and listening to this now that tomorrow I am going to be going to that school at the Michaela Academy. I'm going to be meeting Catherine Burbleston. We're going to be doing an interview, and I'm going to be seeing that school firsthand for myself and showing what I can of it to you as well, so we can get a handle, I think, on what is going to be a vitally, vitally important court case for the future of this country. Kelvin Mackenzie there, a Fleet Street legend himself. Thank you very, very much. Right, I've still got loads coming your way. Prince Harry's triggered another royal row, but this time it's with a fake prince in Germany. Editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, reports on that and the news that Sarah Ferguson has been diagnosed with skin cancer. But next, a Rochdale grooming gang leader is still in the country, 9 years after he was meant to be deported back to Pakistan. Why? Well, I'll tell you all, and I'm also going to be revealing the shocking cost to the taxpayer of how much it's costing you, me and everyone we know to keep these monsters in Britain. Patrick Christys tonight, see you in a tick.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Storm Jocelyn will be arriving this time tomorrow on Tuesday evening. Not as intense as Storm Isha, but nevertheless could cause some further disruption. Brewing out in the Atlantic at the moment. There is the next storm system. Storm Isha continues to clear away. Still plenty of isobars on the chart. It is still pretty gusty out there this evening. Plenty of showers too, packing in across Scotland in particular. But the showers will tend to ease off in most places, generally becoming clear overnight, and the winds will ease down further until the cloud thickens and we start to see wet weather coming into Northern Ireland by dawn. With the clearer skies and as the winds ease, we could see some pockets of frost across Scotland, but for most of us, we'll start Tuesday at 4 or 5 degrees. Many in the east will start dry and bright, but the rain will spread into the west and then become pretty much across all parts by lunchtime. The heaviest rain, though, over Western Hills. The rain could cause some disruption because after Storm Isha, where we had quite a bit of rain falling, extra rainfall may cause some flooding issues, and then the winds continue to strengthen. Actually quite a mild day tomorrow, but not feeling all that mild with the wind and the rain. And the winds continue to strengthen during Tuesday evening, particularly across the north. The winds won't be as strong as with Storm Isha, but because Storm Isha is only just cleared, it could have caused some structural issues. So we do have warnings in place, a broad yellow warning, gusts of 55 to 65 miles an hour, and the amber warning across northern and western Scotland, where gusts could touch 80 miles an hour.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
It's 10 p.m. and this is Patrick Christys Tonight. Clear message, get the grooming gang scumbags out of Britain now. I expose how much you are paying so that Pakistani child rapists can live a normal life here in Britain. And just when you think Prince Harry couldn't sink any lower.
I'm only happy when people are well, and that's why I have activated and developed the Wealth Elixir for you.
Yep, I will show you how Harry got conned by a fake German prince who sells dodgy products. Talking of dodgy products, we'll reveal what our undercover reporter found at an art exhibition for kids. It is indoctrination on a grand scale. Also... pump it into my veins. The wokies want to cancel Rule Britannia. Not on our watch. I will have all of your newspaper front pages. Tonight, in our press pack, here with us, our columnist, Carol Malone. We've got former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy and journalist Mike Buckley. Are you ready, Britain? Here we go. You are paying millions of pounds so that grooming gang scumbags can live the life of Riley here in Britain. I'll see you after the news.
Patrick, thank you. Two sets of breaking news to bring you this hour. Let me tell you, first of all, about the UK and the United States carrying out fresh strikes on Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. It's not what you're seeing on your screen right now. This is slightly newer, so I just want to bring you this first. We can tell you that officials are saying the US and the UK took out Houthi missile storage sites and launchers in the second set of coordinated strikes against the Iran-backed militants. Of course, the UK and the US military working in concert on that one. Let me now bring you that breaking news that we received as well about what's happened in the House of Lords this evening. We do know that after the third reading in the House of Commons, the government's Rwanda bill was being discussed by peers. Well, it suffered something of a blow tonight in the House of Lords. Peers were discussing how safe Rwanda was as a country, and they voted to delay the bill. 214 votes to 171. That's a majority of 43, until the peers said ministers can show that Rwanda is a safe country. You may remember just last week, Rishi Sunak urged the House of Lords to do the right thing and endorse the government's flagship policy aimed at deterring illegal migrants from arriving on the UK shores in small boats. Well, let's tell you about the new weather warnings that have been issued by the Met Office and a new storm called Storm Jocelyn heading for the UK, just as the country is recovering from Storm Isha. 2 people died and tens of thousands remain without power after the UK was battered with high winds last night. Gusts of more than 100 miles an hour and heavy rain caused major travel disruption with flooding and fallen trees, while planes were diverted and trains were cancelled. ScotRail has announced it's again suspending services from 7 o'clock tomorrow as that new weather front approaches. There'll also be, if you're in Scotland, no trains on Wednesday morning either. We're being told by ScotRail that's because lines need to be checked for damage. In other news today, Downing Street denied the government's pursuing an anti-BBC agenda after announcing a raft of reforms as part of a review into the corporation. Under new plans, Ofcom could gain more powers over BBC News website articles if it doesn't meet relevant standards. The government's recommendation is that Ofcom should be given increased oversight over the BBC's online services, including its YouTube channel. The Prime Minister also said today the BBC is not immune from scrutiny. Well, Labour said today the government is turning a blind eye to corruption after new data showed water bosses have been pocketing millions of pounds in performance bonuses despite being in charge while there have been illegal sewage spills. New figures showed water chiefs have received more than £10 million in bonuses and nearly £15 million in incentives since the last general election in 2019. Labour says if it wins the next election, it'll give the water regulator the power to ban senior executives' bonuses when companies are illegally polluting waterways. We do have another bit of breaking news to bring you concerning events in Israel. I can tell you that Israel has proposed a 2-month ceasefire in Gaza in return for the release of all hostages. That's according to the news agency Axios. Israel's put forward that proposal through Qatari and Egyptian mediators, we understand, and that includes up to 2 months of a pause in fighting as part of a multi-phase deal, which would include the release, as I said, of all those remaining hostages. A busy news night tonight. We'll have more for you coming up in the next hour.
Yeah, busy news night indeed. We're going to have a little bit more on at least 2 of the stories that Polly mentioned there that have just broken later on in the show when we do our newspaper review, OK? We're going to be talking about the laws knocking back the Rwanda bill and I think that ceasefire proposal as well. But look, before that, your taxes are paying for grooming gang monsters that we can't deport. Qari Abdul Rauf, the ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang scandal, is remarkably still in Britain, 9 years after he was supposed to be deported. Can I just detail the catalogue of ways in which this guy has been allowed to take the absolute mick? He was jailed for just 6 years after being convicted of conspiracy to engage in sexual activity with children under 16 and trafficking for sexual exploitation. But he was freed on licence after just 2.5 years in prison. He then returned home to his wife and 5 children, so he could go back home to the same community that he lived in earlier, same house, same wife. He then racked up roughly £1 million in taxpayer-funded legal aid costs to avoid deportation. He renounced his Pakistani citizenship and is refusing to take it back, and now Pakistan are, quite rightly, saying that they don't want him. His accomplice, Adil Khan, who got an underage girl pregnant and trafficked another, has told a judge that he should not be deported because his son, quote, needs a role model. I'm sorry, but the implication here, again, is that this person is still in the family home, isn't it? In the same community. Why is it never spoken about that these kind of crimes are committed whilst the perpetrators are active members of the local Muslim community very often, like Rauf, who was an Islamic preacher? They do not appear to be turned over to police by members of that community all too often, who will no doubt claim that they had no knowledge of any wrongdoing. But these convicted paedophiles are then seemingly accepted back into the family home in many cases, back onto the same road. In Rochdale, a new report identified 96 men who could still pose a threat, many of whom are yet to be prosecuted. In Telford, the scene of Britain's worst grooming gang scandal, one of the ringleaders, Adel Eddie Ali, served just 8 years of a 26-year sentence. He was convicted of the rape of a 13-year-old girl, 6 offences of underage sex with the same girl, 3 charges of controlling a child prostitute and sexual activity with a second victim, 2 offences of sexual activity with a child involving a third girl, and offences of grooming and inciting child prostitution and sexual activity with a 4th victim. 8 years behind bars for that. In Rotherham, Kurban Ali and Tayyab Dad were automatically released after just 5 years. It was not even known if they were blocked from returning to their local area. So 5 years for some of the most extreme child sex offences you can imagine. In many cases, victims have not been told that their abusers have been released. And in many cases, those abusers were allowed to just go back home, as we've discussed. Now, I actually went to Telford a good number of years ago now. And I spoke to one of the grooming gang victims who told me that her attacker bumped into her in the shops. And in some cases, like that of Mr. Rauf, you're paying for their prosecution, you're paying for their prison cells, you're paying for their legal costs, you're paying for them to fight deportation, and quite possibly now you're paying their benefits. Now, Pakistan might not want them, but I don't care. We don't want them either, and something has to be done about this. I'll respond to this now. I'm joined again by Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. We've got commentator and journalist Mike Buckley and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda DeLucy. Carol, what on earth do we do? I can understand that Pakistan don't want them, but we don't want them either. Where do they go?
You know, our deportation laws are a joke. And, you know, for all the hatred, the people you just named there, the hatred and the disdain and the contempt with which they treated these girls, these young girls, our authorities in this country are treating them with exactly the same contempt. The cops, the authorities, the judges, the lawyers. You know, the lawyers who are acting for these guys now to stop them being deported, there's a special law being enacted to stop them being identified. So they're being protected. They are dismissing what happened to these young girls and looking after the men who did it, and yet we're not allowed to know who these people are, which I think is shocking. So our authorities are complicit in putting these girls through hell again. The fact that that girl had to come across her attacker in a shop is beyond shocking. You know, this guy you've just talked about, Rauf, went back to his family and all the rest of it. These girls have got a life sentence. And, you know, you detailed the prison sentences they're serving. Most of those sentences for most of those guys were served in open prisons. So they're serving a quarter of their sentence in some cases, and they're serving them in soft, easy, open prisons. What is our society saying about what it thinks about what happened to those girls? Not very much.
OK. Mike, your view on this. I mean, it is incredibly difficult to deport these people, but do we have to be paying them benefits? Do we have to be paying them legal aid? Do we have to be paying for all this stuff as well, really?
Well, I mean, at times like this, I think it's very important to say that the vast majority of sexual violence, including against children in this country, is perpetrated by white people.
And you know why that is? Because the white population is much bigger than the Asian and the black population.
But it's important.
That's a silly fact to quote.
It is not a silly fact to quote, because we've just had a litany of brown faces.
The country is 82% white. Of course, the people that are committing sexual offences.
Yes, but what has been indicated to the viewers of this show is that look at all these brown people who've been doing awful things. Granted,
are you taking away from the fact
just
that
let me answer the question?
You seem to be disputing the fact.
Please let me answer the question. So, obviously, what these men have done is nonetheless entirely awful, and I think we could all recognise that. And I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's terrible that these young women who've been abused don't get told by the police or somebody else in authority, oh yeah, this person's getting a push, you might bump into them into the street. I mean, it is absolutely vile. Part of the problem, I mean, clearly there's been a specific problem in Rochdale. I don't know all the details around that, about these people not being arrested and not being dealt with, these 96 and all of it. There is a problem, of course, with underfunding of the police, which has gone on for the last 13 years. And having spoken to various people in the police recently, obviously since 2019 came around, the government by then had reduced the number of police by 20of They've now raised it slightly.
I am just going to politely stop you. In fact, not that politely. No, I am going to stop you because one of the major reasons why these people were not brought to justice is because police were too afraid of stoking racial tensions. And in light of the way you started your answer to that, I can
if that is the case...
It is the case. The reports have said it was the case.
Then, obviously, that needs to be addressed.
Right.
I'm not saying the police haven't done anything wrong. Clearly, in this instance, they have done something wrong, and that needs to be set straight.
Have you not read the reports on this, where the police have been roundly criticised for turning a blind eye? Have you not read these reports? They've been coming for years.
I haven't read the reports from beginning to end, but I realise there has been a problem.
Belinda, can I just ask a question about this, which is I don't think gets asked enough, right? Which is that if in my local community I knew that a convicted child sex offender was about to move back into the family home next door and presumably go back into community life, as it were, I think I'd have a thing or two to say about that. There does not appear to have been that much pushback in communities in Rochdale, Rotherham, etc., to a lot of these people going back and just living and rejoining the marital home. I find that quite astonishing.
I just think it's such an insult to the children that were raped by these men. I think the invertebrates in Westminster refuse to even suspend parts of the Human Rights Act to deport paedophiles, terrorists, criminals, murderers. Macron, even last year, when a Strasbourg ruling tried to stop the deportation of an Islamist jihadi, he just ignored it and he deported him anyway. Our government refuses to do that, and I'm sorry, but the rules of the sentencing is disgusting. A handful of years for raping children. The message that's going out is to any men that want to do this, all you have to do is spend a couple of years in jail and can do whatever you like to girls if they're a different colour, from a different community, or cultural sensitivities are involved. It is disgusting. The justice system needs completely looked into. Investigations need to be made, and our government needs to grow a spine. We need to use every tool we can to deport every single criminal we can. I don't care if it's against their human rights. I don't care if they face degrading prison time from wherever they come. The rights of our children and the safety of the British people have to come first.
Let's not forget, in 2020, Starmer and 70 Labour MPs signed a letter to stop the deportation of convicted criminals from this country, and every one of those criminals who was stopped from being deported went on to commit huge crimes. One guy even murdered somebody. Other drug dealers were a guy attacked a 27-year-old woman. These guys were criminals and they went on to offend again thanks to Labour. And Starmer will do this again.
Well, we'll obviously get massive pushback on that now, I would imagine. Is it fair to say that the Labour Party, when it comes to things like the grooming gang issue, you look at areas where this was taking place and there was a perception that maybe more could have been done from local councils, local politicians. All too often they were, just in those areas, Labour. And the examples that Carol has raised there, do you think that there is maybe a problem with the Labour Party when it comes to holding these people to justice or not?
No, I don't for a minute. I mean, Keir Starmer, to take one example, he's leader of the Labour Party. He was Director of Public Prosecutions for a long time. It was his job to run the whole legal service in this country, and he was deemed to do a very good job of it. It's given an item because he did a great job of it. I don't know about the instance you're talking about somebody signing a letter...
2020, 70 Labour MPs.
But I would imagine that was upholding the law. But again, I don't know the circumstances actually.
No, he said all
deportations
deportations of foreign criminals should be halted.
On what grounds?
Well, you didn't give the grounds, you just said they shouldn't be deported. On humanitarian
It's Article 8
grounds.
of the ECHR, it's right to family life. So all you have to do is get someone pregnant, marry, whatever, and you can commit whatever crime.
Keep us all safe.
No, they're keeping the criminals
Rightly
safe.
so.
About the
But in
human rights
instance-
of child rapists. How can you talk about
In this
human
instance,
rights of child
to be
rapists?
fair to the government, and I'm not often fair to the government, I think, broadly speaking, they've done a terrible job over the last 13 years, and I can't wait to see them chucked out of office at the end of this year. However, in the instance of these two people who should be sent back to Pakistan, I agree in an ideal world they will go to Pakistan. But if Pakistan's saying we don't want them, you can't.
Then we stop the aid. Then we stop giving them
then
foreign
they would
aid.
return here.
They were allowed
the
to
government is
relinquish
actually
their
in a
dual
difficult-
citizenship, and they were helped in that by lawyers who said that was the way they could stay in this country, because they knew what would happen to them if they went back to Pakistan.
That's a loophole that needs to be
Anybody
closed.
can renounce a citizenship if they want to.
Not when they've been charged with
nobody
child
needs
rape.
legal help
They
for
should be
that.
forbidden to do that and deported straight away.
But you can't forbid somebody.
Yeah,
to say they
actually
want
you
to
can,
renounce
because
their
we're a sovereign
do you
country and we
think
can
they
make
did
laws.
That's an independent choice. Granted, they may well have done that because they wanted to stay in the UK.
They did that because they were told that when they served their prison sentence,
that is an awful
they would be
thing.
sent
We would
back.
all like it. But in fairness to the government, if there's no country saying we will welcome them, they're kind of
The
stuck.
government should have found a way to stop it.
We
Yeah.
as a country need to work out what we're going to do with people in this.
Well, it's
because
easy.
I agree. It also isn't ideal if they're just wandering around. It also isn't ideal if they're in prison and we're all paying for
It's
them to
not
be in
just
prison,
not
which
ideal,
costs tens of
Mike.
thousands a year.
This is women, young girls and young whose
I
lives
agree. Well, what's
were
your
wrecked.
solution then? Tell me what that is.
What do you
I'd
mean?
love to hear
My
it.
solution to what?
Your solution to these people being
Chuck
in
them
Rochdale.
out. Don't care where they go. Not
Leave the
interested.
ECHR.
Where would you like
Chuck
to
them
send
out.
them?
Don't care.
Pick a country
Put
that's
them on
going
a
to say they
plane and
can
get
stay.
them out.
Ascension
We don't want
Island.
them
So
here.
how do you stop that country sending them back?
What do you mean? You're being silly now.
You put on a, no, I'm not. You put on a plane, they go to Pakistan.
We don't want
the
them.
Pakistani
They have-
authorities are going to put them on a
It
plane
is
and send them
because
back
of our
here.
ridiculous
They'll be playing
deportation
ping-pong
laws.
forever.
Because of our
No, it isn't.
ridiculous...
We are a
So
sovereign
what is your
country, right?
solution for the
We
young
can
girls?
decide who comes in.
What is your
Pakistan
solution for
is
the young
also a
girls
sovereign
who have
country.
to look at their attackers and their rapists every day?
I wish
What's your solution
I
to
don't
that?
have a solution. Maybe
go.
they should be moved to another city.
What about, guys, we have Ascension Island, British territory overseas. We can make that a prison island and send all the... Well, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it to the local population, but we have to make sure that when you're charged with a serious crime, you are deported. I don't care if they don't suffer even prison time. They need to be deported and sent back
You're
if they
very
have.
keen on deporting people.
I am,
You won't suggest
I am.
where they're supposed to be deported.
Yes, I am, to stop them from renouncing their citizenship to stay in this country.
Where are you going to send them
If we'd stopped them, we could have sent... Because we have a returns agreement with Pakistan. Priti Patel signed it in 2022.
All right. Well, that is a good thing.
All right.
However, Pakistan don't want these particular people.
OK, all right, we're drawing a line under it there, and, you know, I love it. Well done. Thank you very much. Right, coming up, as Harry and Meghan's wedding cellist wades in to cancel culture, is he right that the song Rule Britannia should be banned from the proms? We will debate that, plus we'll have a look at tomorrow's front pages tonight in my press pack. But next, with hapless Harry being warned to stay away from a fake German prince with a reputation even dodgier than his own, and Fergie's second cancer diagnosis in a matter of months making the headlines. There is plenty for the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, to get her teeth stuck into. That is tonight's Royal Dispatch. I'll be back in a tick.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight. We're only on GB News. Now, Prince Harry has been blasted in German for posing at an awards ceremony with an alleged royal fraudster. Here he is with the self-styled Prince Mario Max Schaumburg-Lieb, who has been accused by the head of the family of Prince Alexander of harvesting their name for personal gain. Now, Harry's mate, right, the so-called Prince Mario Max, appeared on the German version of Celebrity Big Brother in 2014, flogs his own wealth elixir on a German shopping channel. If you don't believe me, take a look and a listen to this.
I'm only happy when people are well, and that's why I have activated and developed the Wealth Elixir for you.
It says that if you spray it on a lottery ticket, you've got a good chance of winning. I mean, it's all absolutely barn pot stuff. But Prince Alexander told the Mail on Sunday, Prince Harry cannot stoop lower than appearing with him. I would advise him to stay away from this man. Well, I'm joined now by the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, thank you very much. I mean, Prince Harry's reputation, well and truly in the toilet here, surely.
It's not been great for his reputation. A lot of people have been saying birds of a feather stick together. Now, obviously, this Mario Max guy is, you know, he's flogging stuff on QVC, he's going on Celeb Big Brother, and Harry is in a different league to that. But people are saying, are they so very different? Because Harry went on Oprah, well, that's a form of reality TV. He's flogging his private life in his book. He went around flogging his book. And what I think this shows is that it's only a hop, skip and a jump from the top to the bottom, and it's the same thing, really, isn't it? It's selling yourself, selling your royal connections. And it's just really unfortunate they were pictured together for his PR team, who must be holding their head in their hands today.
What is Harry even doing at any of these kind of events that this chap turns up to? It's ridiculous.
I know. I think this event was a particularly bad one. And I get the impression Harry started to get a sense that it wasn't exactly an A-list event, because he didn't go on the red carpet to arrive, and he sort of snuck out the back door afterwards. And there were sort of beauty contestants there, pageant girls. It was pretty low rent. Yeah, there was John Travolta,
Right.
but it wasn't packed with A-listers. And actually, Meghan didn't go. She was looking after her kids. And she may have thought, you know, I'm taking one for the team here, but I'd say she actually was dodging a bullet in the end. So, you know, I don't think it would have done her reputation that much good to have been there because it was just low rent.
Yeah, indeed. And, I mean, Harry now as well, you know, getting terrible advice. So if he was advised to go, you know, that shows the kind of calibre of people that are doing the advising for Prince Harry, getting pictured with this essentially fake low-rent prince who flogs wealth elixir on QVC. The irony overload there is unbelievable, isn't it? I just wonder, you know, who is surrounding Harry at the moment? Who is telling him to be at these events? I mean, in a way, it's quite sad.
It's really sad what's happened, and he has got this amazing team. He's got this amazing Hollywood PR team around him. I just don't know what happened in the build-up to this, but they sort of appeared to realise, I think, that it might not be the best event in the whole world because of the way he went about the appearance. It was quite low-key, but he did manage to get snapped with this guy, and it is a bit sad, really. He is getting bad advice, and there's no way around it. And if he was still in the royal family, this would never have happened. There'd be a team of people vetting him. He would not be allowed to take selfies. Royal family members very rarely take selfies because of this exact thing, because you get some lunatic who will now... He's already put this Mario Max guy, he's put it all over his social media.
Absolutely.
And will dine out on it for the rest of his life, which is something we know Harry hates. He hates people dining out on their connection with him. And yet he's dining out sort of on his connection with his own family. So, as you say, the layers of irony are all over the shop here.
Yeah, definitely. Now, yesterday, there was some more astonishing royal health news. It keeps coming at the moment, doesn't it? So Sarah Ferguson has sadly been diagnosed with skin cancer just months after being diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, today she has said that despite the shock, she's in good spirits. Charlotte, terrible time for Fergie, isn't it?
It's a really terrible time. It's so worrying because we all know that if you get a cancer diagnosis very soon after another cancer diagnosis, there's a risk that it could have spread, and she's on tenterhooks now waiting to find out. But what's great about Fergie, and why I think the nation loves her, is she's being really jolly about it. She went on Loose Women and said, you know, when you get bad news, you turn the other cheek and just face it with joy. She's a very joyous person. Apparently, behind the scenes, she's actually sort of staying as chipper as you would imagine from Fergie, actually, and has kind of a good sense of humour around the whole thing. But she's been in the Maya Clinic, which is a really expensive clinic in Austria, and, you know, she's probably... You know, she said she actually has been getting up at 4 a.m. worrying a little bit. She's probably incredibly worried right now.
Yeah, and we've got Charles and the enlarged prostate issue. We obviously, whatever's happening with Catherine as well, and then now this. Do you think this is a bit of a symbol that the slimmed-down monarchy is perhaps not the best idea?
No, they're going to need to boost those numbers, because if you think about it, who's left? There's Edward going to South Africa without Sophie. So they're probably, because Sophie needs to stay in the UK and cut some ribbons, because there's Anne, and then there's Camilla looking after Charles, there's William looking after Catherine. Beatrice and Eugenie aren't working royals. We all know what's happened to Harry and Meghan. I've sort of run out of royals to count on my fingers here. So, I mean, but who would have thought that 3 senior royals would be ill in such a short space of time? And I know Fergie's not a working royal, but she did walk around on Christmas Day in Sandringham. I think the nation have... always consider her to be a royal. I know she's obviously had her HRH taken away, but she's, you know, she's just part of the royal family to us. And if something were to happen to her, I think it would rock the royal family in the public's perception, just like it would with any other royal in a strange way.
And I do wonder now, you know, with all of this rubbish that you see about the royal family and for people from Republic and all of that stuff saying that we need to tear it all down, you know, we have now got 3 potentially very serious health concerns in the royal family. They are a family just like anybody else is in that sense. Health is a great leveller, and hopefully we can just give them the exact kind of time that they need to get through it. And we all wish them well. Charlotte, thank you very much.
Thanks.
As ever, great to have you on the show. That is, of course, the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Make sure that you do keep it Mail on Sunday for all of the latest royal news as well. They're bang on the inside of all of this stuff. So there we go. Now, coming up, is it right that the Young V&A Museum in East London is now promoting things like trans ideology and climate fear to impressionable British kids? We sent a reporter undercover. The results may surprise you. But does this offend you? No, didn't think so. But Harry and Meghan's cellist wants it axed from the Proms. Should we listen to him? Next, though, tonight's panel of top pundits return to the sofa. We're going to go through the very first of tomorrow's front pages, which are landing as we speak, and it includes a couple, actually, of very big stories about the latest incident when it comes to bombing the Houthis, which will not be in the front pages, but we've got a scoop on that, and also, as well, of course, about the Lords knocking back the Rwanda bill. So very, very newsy final half hour coming your way. Stay tuned.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. All right, welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, and it's time to bring you tomorrow's news tonight now, in the liveliest pay-per view anywhere on telly. Here we go. We start with the Metro. Fat-busting balloon pill on the NHS. Hope for millions in cost-saving procedure on day Morgan tragedy revealed. So we'll have a little bit more on that in the next section. The Eye. UK's worst storms in a decade will become the norm. Britain braced for Storm Jocelyn after Aisha leaves tens of thousands without power and 2 sadly dead. The Guardian. Medics urge not to report illegal abortions to the police. Royal College intervenes amid fear over impact of prosecution for women. And we're going to go to the Mirror now. They also lead on a version of the weight loss stories. Tragic one, this. 20-year-old Morgan was bullied about her size growing up. She hoped an operation would change her life, but now she's just the latest victim of botched surgery in Turkey. A lot of horror stories coming out of those Turkey surgeries that people are going over there to get. Finish with the Times just for this section of front pages. I won't count on as ditching, Saturday Post, insists Sunak. The big one they're going with, their leader, is blood test can detect early sign of Alzheimer's disease spotted years before symptoms showed. There appear to have been quite a few Alzheimer's breakthroughs in recent years. Hopefully they actually really do seriously come to something. I'm joined now by my press pack. I have got Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. I've got commentator and journalist Mike Buckley, former Brexit Party MEP Belinda DeLucy. Look, I just want to touch quickly on some of the health stories that we've got here, actually. So, you know, this idea, now there's one in The Independent, actually. Obese NHS patients begin receiving radical balloon-in-pill weight loss treatment, right? A new type of weight loss pill is being given to NHS patients that contains a gastric balloon, which is swallowed and then filled with water. Carol, you're shaking your head about the gastric balloon.
I am. You know, I don't trust this stuff. I think that, you know, it's not dealing with the problems that make people overeat in the first place. So you put a balloon inside someone, are they going to stop eating? Are they going to force food down? Because that's the mindset. So I think it's really difficult to put something inside someone which can explode and which can cause damage internally. I think a lot of the operations people have, the gastric band things, can cause damage. I know people who've had them, so the intention is to lose weight, and then they overeat still, and things happen. So I don't trust this at all.
You don't trust it, Belinda?
I think it's wonderful that new avenues are being explored to find cheaper ways of reducing obesity in this country, and I would say it may not work for some, but if it works for others, it is worth it. We need to save the NHS more money and think of new ways and cheap ways to help people lose weight.
Do you stay fit the old-fashioned way, mate?
I do. I haven't got a bubble in my tummy at all, so I just try and exercise and eat a bit less. However, I think this is brilliant, and obviously it's going to save a lot of lives, and it's going to make things a lot easier for the NHS, save a lot of money, it saves all of us money, because the NHS can spend that money on other things, which is a really good thing. I mean, actually, a really good friend of mine, she had an older version of this a few years ago, and she was very overweight, and then she was on that. She had something put in her stomach on a temporary basis. She lost loads of weight, and she's kept it off, and it's brilliant. It's changed her life.
All right, OK.
It's interesting he is fit, because we've been eating biscuits and chocolate at day.
There you go. You see, I've refused.
Life's not fair. No, there you go. Right, now, look, this is a very important story, OK, and it broke just before I came on air. So in a sign of what is likely to come, the House of Lords have inflicted their first blow on Rishi Sunak and his Rwanda bill. In an unprecedented move, the unelected peers voted to delay a treaty with Rwanda by 214 votes to 171. So Labour former Attorney-General Lord Goldsmith said, "We are not saying the treaty should never be ratified, but we are saying that Parliament should have the opportunity to scrutinise the treaty and is implementing measures in full before it makes judgment about whether Rwanda is safe." I mean, Carol, well, what do you make of this, then?
Well, I just don't think the Lord should have the final say on this. You know, there was a report out last week that said 9 out of 10 constituencies throughout the country, throughout the 650, wanted immigration controlled quickly. They wanted a hard crackdown on it. And here we have the House of Lords deciding otherwise, because they have decided. They said last week that they were going to try and defeat it, and they actually listed how they were going to try and defeat it. And this is an unelected, unaccountable House. There's supposed to be a revising chair, but there's no revising going on here. They've already decided. So I don't think this is right. The majority of the British people want a hard crackdown on immigration, and the Lords are going to stop it.
Right, well, you know, the people do want something done about illegal immigration. I'm convinced if you put Rwanda to a referendum, it would win. You know, where are the Lords getting off on this, just relentlessly frustrating it?
Well, the polls say that actually over half the public want this policy scrapped, and they do want the asylum system dealt with. They want the cases, you know, people are in the country already, they want those cases processed, which the government is singularly refusing to do. And obviously people do want to see the boat crossings stop as well, but that needs to be done in a way that is humane and in a way that saves lives rather than risks lives. The House of Lords is looking to revise this, and what they're saying to the government is, so you're saying... Yeah, they are.
They want to scrap it, they've said so.
Well, the Supreme Court, they haven't said that in the slightest.
Yes,
I mean,
they said exactly that last week.
You just heard from that guy saying this isn't... We're not saying it should never go through.
Saying this is not going to happen and this is how we're going to...
Yeah, but not all of them.
Quite a lot.
Maybe. What the Supreme Court have said, just to finish, is that Rwanda is not a safe country. Rishi Sunak said, well, yes,
the UN sends refugees to Rwanda. This is total and utter nonsense. The House of Lords needs completely reformed. I think that's one of the reasons why Reform UK are doing so well in the polls as well. They want an elected second chamber. chamber. They're going to delay, frustrate until this wet wipe of a flawed, weak, limp biscuit of a policy anyway gets completely watered down to nothing by the Lords. The whole thing needs to be reset. We just need to deport, do what Macron did, ignore the ECHR and deport them to Rwanda.
Exactly.
All of them, as soon as they step foot on our shore. Tens of thousands of them.
Say what you think. Stop messing about.
Well, quite indeed. I mean, there's some incredibly strong stuff there, and we love to see it. Now, look, it's the crowning moment of last night at the Proms. But Rule Britannia has come under attack from a woke friend of Harry and Meghan's, Sheku Kane Mason, who performed at the Sussexes' wedding ceremony back in 2018, there he is, has called for it to be axed. So here he is, speaking to the BBC.
Maybe some people don't realise how uncomfortable a song like that can make a lot of people feel, even if it makes them feel good. I think that's somehow a big misunderstanding about it.
Belinda, he believes that the song is offensive. What do you think?
Oh, Petal, little thing needs a safe room, I feel. The fragile, sort of perpetually offended ilk that my generation's probably created, if I'm going to blame anyone, of the young who just feel like they're a victim of everything. They see racism in everything. Rule Britannia, the very lyrics are about Alfred the Great defending the Anglo-Saxons and the Britons from Viking enslavement, because I know the left hate to hear it, but English and British people were enslaved and colonised too. We suffered too, and the song is about that. And then I've forgotten his name. Sorry, can you?
Yes, well, no.
I was too nervous.
Sheku.
Yeah, Sheku. He's done himself a disservice. He just sounds silly. Apparently, he left last year's Night of the Proms before hearing it because he didn't want to hear the song.
Who are all these people who says feel uncomfortable? All his mates, I suspect. And if he felt that uncomfortable about it, he shouldn't have played in the Proms this year. Does he not understand what it's about? It celebrates British tradition with patriotic music. That's what it's all about.
Mike, presumably Ode to Joy would be your...
I'm quite a fan of Ode to Joy, yeah. I mean, I think it's completely understandable that he's offended by it, and I think
Go on, why?
Why?
Because it ends every verse with the line, Britons shall not be slaves.
What's wrong with that?
Obviously, for somebody from a black background, they're going to hear that and they'll think, well, yeah, but at the time this was written, 1740, I think, we were busy enslaving lots of black people. So obviously it's going to bring up the... You know, just the lots of feelings around that. Which, to be fair, all of us are white. There's no way that we could understand how people feel.
Do you think he knows that Britain abolished slavery in 1806?
And 3,000 sailors of our Navy died.
He is aware of that because he doesn't strike me as an idiot.
Navy members lost their lives.
All right.
Saving slaves.
It's perfully understandable that he feels the way he feels. I mean, I suspect within a few years we will have stopped singing it.
Not on my life. I tell you what, we sang in the schools.
I'm singing it.
We will find out, won't we, whether or not people will stop singing Rule Britannia. Coming up, ahead of my interview with Catherine Birbalsingh tomorrow night, was Britain's strictest head teacher right to ban Muslim prayer in school? Not just Muslim prayers, to be fair, it was all prayer, really, wasn't it? We'll debate that as I crown tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass, but first, we take you on a trip, of sorts, to the Young V&A Museum in East London, where an exhibition aimed at kids is promoting woke trans ideology and climate fear-mongering. We had a man on the inside of all of that. This is Patrick Christys tonight, and we are only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys tonight. We're only on GB News. I've got some more front pages for you now, hot off the press. The Independent goes in with Starmer ignites culture war with anti-woke Tories. Labour leader accuses Sunak of deliberately stoking division with desperate and divisive McCarthyite attacks on colonial sensitivity and national trust. We're way ahead of the game, I'm afraid, there, because we spoke about that earlier on. Here we go. Mail. Starmer wades into culture wars. On the side of the woke, Keir Starmer was accused of relentlessly politicising British life yesterday as he pledged to defend organisations that go woke. OK, so similar front pages there. Let's go to the Telegraph. Alzheimer's blood test revolution for over 50. So they're the same as what I believe is on the Times. Condition could be detected 15 years before symptoms using much less invasive method. Badenoch to intervene in gender pay trans row as well. We go to The Sun. Camilla's advice to workaholic Charles: slow down. It's a royal exclusive. I'm very concerned about the health of the royal family at the moment. I'm sure we all are, but there seems to be a heck of a lot of them in trouble. RAF blitz Houthis again. Britain last night launched a second blitz on the Iran-backed Houthi rebels after they attacked and they refused to halt ship attacks. Big story that. The Express. Breakthrough Alzheimer's blood test will bring cure closer. So there we go. Alzheimer's leading the way on 3 national newspapers tomorrow. But something you won't see, and you won't see because we have ourselves gone out and got it right here at GB News. One of my producers went out and took a trip to the Young V&A. So it's a children's museum in East London. They came across a display remarkably promoting political activism. One piece appeared to be promoting Black Lives Matter with the text "Decolonise everything" featured in the artwork. Another section of the display appeared to encourage children to take part in climate activism, in particular Extinction Rebellion. This included instructions on how to easily produce flags and wood blocks for printing Extinction Rebellion logos and slogans. A high-vis vest with an XR patch on the back was also on display, informing children that patches can identify you as part of that group or movement. This exhibition, by the way, is aimed at children aged 0 to 14, apparently, so, you know, drink it in, kids. And lastly, another section appears to be promoting trans activism. There we go, featuring a photo of a trans activist holding a cardboard sign reading "Trans kids are a blessing." Right. The information beneath the artwork told children that they can do it too. You can do it too. There we go. So if you want to, I don't know, scrawl something about the trans community on a piece of cardboard and hold it up and take a picture of it, you too could find yourself in an art exhibition for kids. Well, we reached out to Young V&A and a spokesperson said, "We have created Young V&A with and for young children. And throughout our co-design process, they asked the museum to engage with topics they felt relevant to their lives and the world around them, including climate change, sustainability, social justice and identity. The V&A has a long-standing history collecting and exhibiting protest art and design, and objects in Young V&A's design gives people a voice section, illustrates how design can be used to raise awareness." There we go. Now, we are actually going to have to be very quick on this. But Belinda, I know that you were itching to get in a word about this. You know, this is an art exhibition created for children by children, and this is the kind of stuff.
The reason those topics are important to children, or if they're saying they're important, is because adults have told them they've been indoctrinated. And I feel deeply uncomfortable with any adult targeting children with gender ideology and wrong body theory. I think in a few years, adults that have contributed to children being exposed to this will end up in court.
Do you think we have to force this stuff on kids, Mike? I mean, look, you know, you go to it's everywhere, isn't it?
This exhibition is just explaining things as they are in the world today to kids. I mean, you can't move in the world without people talking about trans identity or talking about climate
Where
change.
were the Brexit protests
pictures
then?
Well,
Why
they
were they
probably were
Brexit?
there
No,
a
they
few
weren't.
years ago. They probably were there, I would imagine.
How can you say trans kids are a blessing? Is it a blessing when girls have their breasts chopped off and they take hormones that make them fertile,
dangerous.
and then they realise they're not really trans after all, they just had a problem? Is that a blessing? Where you wreck kids' bodies in their lives? Is that a blessing?
I mean, that's a different debate, isn't it? But what this exhibition is doing is educating kids to say these are issues in the world today.
To be.
Yeah.
Well, it was admittedly saying that, but it's just kind of saying that, you know, these are issues that are debated in the world. It wasn't
dangerous
really
indoctrination.
Not a great thing to be.
All right. Well, look, I do think it's interesting. Yes, it's just yet another example, isn't it, of the idea that this is deemed what's most important for kids and the way it's portrayed. You know, it just seems to be a lot of this out there, doesn't there? But it is time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Right, we start with Carol's Greatest Britain.
Mine is Catherine Verbelsing, who I think you've got an interview with tomorrow.
Yes.
She's arguably the best head teacher in Britain, certainly running one of the best performing schools in Britain, especially among very, very poor children, gets incredible results. She's in the High Court this week because she's been sued, the school has been sued by a Muslim student who said that she wasn't allowed to pray on school premises. This is not you know, for Muslims. This is, she doesn't allow any religion to be practiced within the school because she believes that kids, she's done it in the name of multiculturalism and integration because she believes kids should not be influenced by other religions. Okay. Anyway, but she's now in the High Court. Well, it turns out today that the student who's accused her, she threatened to stab someone last year and was actually suspended from the school. And she threatened to stab someone who was going to tell on the fact that she was going to destroy the school.
OK, all right, strong start. Go on, who's your Greatest Britain?
Well, I'll just say I think banning prayer was absolutely barbaric. But anyway, different point.
Sorry?
But my greatest... Banning prayer.
What, secular schools not allowing prayer? Are you kidding me?
She's banned all prayer.
It's the kind of thing you
Jews, Muslims, Christians,
I don't care.
everyone.
It's the kind of thing you'd expect in a dictatorship.
Oh, don't be so silly.
This is a secular state.
This is Islamist bullying.
All right, can I just say... Right, can I just say, I've got an exclusive with her tomorrow, and so we'll be having a lot more of this tomorrow.
Greatest Britain is the king, because not because he's the head of the church, but because, in this instance, he's been honest about his health issues, and that's created a spike in people searching online for prostate issues. So that's a really good thing. Him going public is going to save lives.
OK, good, yeah.
Mine is Basil Brockhurst. This is the taxi driver from Shropshire who had a St George's flag, a Union flag in his taxi. Shropshire Council said, no, you're not allowed it because it's divisive or whatever rubbish they said. And he said, no way, Jose, and they changed their mind. So, yes, British taxi drivers in Shropshire can have the Union flag.
Today's Greatest Britain is Basil. All right, well done, Basil. OK. Right, we're going to go to Union Jackasses now. Now, let's be quick. Go on.
Labour MP as Afsana Begum. We know why. She's the one still living in a council house 2 years on after she became an MP, and she's on 90 grand a year, looking after a constituency that has 23,000 people on the housing waiting list.
OK. Go on, Mike.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Good.
What I'm going to say is HMRC. So they were given powers back in 2017 to basically deal with companies that weren't paying enough tax. They haven't used those powers once. What is going on?
OK, meanwhile, you're always on the phone to me, aren't you? Anyway, go on.
Transport for London, yes, the TfL have put down rules that are absolutely absurd and very dangerous. They are allowing asylum seekers and refugees to apply to be taxi drivers without having any criminal background checks.
The winner of the Union Jackass is the Labour MP, Afsana Begum. There we go. OK, all right. So, look, thank you very, very much to my wonderful panel this evening. It's been a lively show, and you really, really do love to see it. I want to remind her as well that Headliners is next, but I just want to end on a patriotic and positive note. Some people may like putting this country down, but not here. I'll stand by our traditions no matter what. I'll be back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Rule Britannia. OK, there we go. Thank you very much, everybody. I will see you tomorrow at 9. All right, we're not going to do away with it. Not on my watch. Lovely stuff. Thank you, guys.
weather outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Storm Jocelyn will be arriving this time tomorrow on Tuesday evening. Not as intense as Storm Isha, but nevertheless could cause some further disruption. Brewing out in the Atlantic at the moment. There is the next storm system. Storm Isha continues to clear away. Still plenty of isobars on the chart. It is still pretty gusty out there this evening. Plenty of showers too, packing in across